What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Smith. He is Robbie the Fire Bernstein. How you feeling today, buddy?
I'm doing well. It's nice to have a night off, and I'm already starting to schedule more porches, which I'm going to regret. But you know, it's the season of porches. I'm feeling the energy.
Are you? Where are you going next?
The next run of porches, that's a great question. I know I got a one-nighter in Minnesota, and then it's like a long run through Tennessee, making my way up to Cincinnati and Ohio. And then, of course, at the end of the month, we're back at the legendary original porch, my friend Max's, who's got the private bar Pubcas, which I actually just stopped off at. Nicest guy in the world. Me and BK Chris rolled in at 1:30 in the morning. And he got out of bed to open up his bar and put out a spread for us, and we were boozing till like 4 a.m. So
that's pretty nice.
Yeah, no, I look forward to it all year. We're bringing back the smoke out, bug out. If I had to recommend one porch, it's come out to Pubcas, which is at the end of the summer, August 31st, and you can camp that one.
Very nice, very nice. And of course, we'll be back out on the road together starting in September, and then for the rest of the year. ComicDaveSmith.com for all those ticket links. By the way, if you have any, if you're in the live chat, if you'd like to join the live chat or watch the show live or get the members only episode, we do 4 episodes a week. Make sure to sign up over at partoftheproblem.com. Little light on topics today, so we'll definitely take some questions. If you got any questions,
we got the biggest bombshell of the Epstein story. Just work like the administration. If you stay tuned to the end, your own jaw is going to fall off your skull. You're going to have to find it on the floor.
And that we should start doing that every episode, and then at the end we go, I am sorry, it's going to be next episode till the
next
end.
Administration. When you vote us back into office, we'll have it for you.
If you have any questions or topics that you'd like us to cover, feel free to throw those in the chat. Natalie, grab any questions if you see them, and we'll get into some of that. There was this shooting in Midtown Manhattan yesterday, and I was in Manhattan when it happened. And so I grew up in New York City, so I know the city pretty well. And I will tell you, it's a real New York moment where I was down, I don't know, it was in Midtown. So I was like 20 blocks south of there. And I was in my Uber coming in, and you could tell there were just the number of cop cars that were going. It was like, oh, this is a thing. Because you could see cop cars rushing somewhere anytime in New York City, but there's a certain amount of them where you're like, oh, a whole thing is going down, something. And then I guess this was around 7:30 p.m. last night. I saw that it was reported that they had arrested a guy in a Palestine shirt, and we were joking about that on Skanks last night. And then I did not see until today. So I just spent last night and then this morning thinking, without reading or looking into it, like that's what happened. It was some type of Palestinian activist went and shot some people up. Turns out that does not appear to be the story, or that is not what they are reporting now. It evidently was something about a guy targeting the NFL offices over CTE allegations or something. Who knows? Sometimes what gets reported right after these shootings turns out to not be very accurate information. But it did. I mean, turns out evidently they just arrested a guy who was wearing a Palestine shirt and then realized he had nothing to do with any of it, which is kind of hilarious profiling in a way. But it did, at least when I was thinking that that's what happened, it did kind of remind me of something I have been saying for a long time. For the last couple of years, I've said many times on the show, is that I really am worried about that. And I think that there is, I think the environment is ripe for blowback terrorism. And I think it's a real concern. I think in a lot of ways, like Scott Horton's made this point a bunch, like we're just kind of lucky that bin Laden is dead and that there's just no figure that really rallies the jihadists quite like they had that in the 90s and early 2000s. But goddamn, it's like if we really do keep up this policy for much longer, it is a real risk that we're going to deal with some type of like terrorist attacks here, as revenge. So anyway, I think that's what always was motivating the terrorism problem that America had, and we've done we've thrown a lot more gasoline on that fire. So anyway,
Well,
that was
maybe,
the thought that was in my head. Luckily, it turned out not to be that.
You know what? I can't make this joke. Back to you, Dave.
Oh man, it's so
you don't hear that from me too
rare.
often.
It's so rare that Rob will actually go, now, you know what? I got to stop myself. Got to stop myself on that one. All right, sorry here. I was just trying to look at the live stream. If you got any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat and we will get back to it. It does seem to me like, I don't know if you've felt this, Rob, but it does seem to me like there is, I was talking about this like the last time I was on Piers Morgan, and not even my own segment, just talking about watching the other debate that was happening before me. And it does seem like there is like this kind of critical mass that's being reached where people are just fucking supporting this thing. And that it's just like, it's just too long. It's just too fucked up. It's too indefensible. And every day there's another story that just, like you really are like, I was seeing, I don't know if you saw it, Rob, but there was there's been a few, obviously there's been a ton of images out of Gaza over the last couple of years, but there's been a couple, particularly in the last couple of weeks, of like babies and little kids who are like starving to death. And I'm watching on Twitter the pro-Israel people like trying to defend this, and their claim is that they're like, no, this is a baby who has some genetic disease or something like that. This isn't a baby who's starving. And it's like, look, who the hell knows what that one particular kid was? Like, I'm not claiming I know, but like, you're just like, look at the like zoom out for a little bit and look what you're arguing now. You're literally sitting there going like, no, like starving corpses isn't evidence of anything. Like, this is the argument that the Jewish state is making, is that you're like, oh no, these piles of corpses, that's no, you can't use that to form any conclusion. You're like, really? Is that right now? And it's anyway, there's that strange dynamic where it does seem like this, it's almost like, there are certain things, say immigration, I think is a good example of that. I do think the crazy woke shit is a good example, where there are these like topics where there might be someone who's still debating it, but like the debate is over. The debate, this was one of the points that I made when I was debating Alex Nurwashta at Soho Forum, was I was just like, look, we could have this debate, but like, just so we're clear here, the debate is over. The American people have already decided where they stand on this. And it does seem like we're entering that phase of US support for what Israel's doing to Gaza, where it's just like, dude, Mike Huckabee was furious with Israel last week. Michael Knowles at the Daily Wire came out and was like, I'm done. This is it. This is too far for me. I can't support him anymore. And now the starvation crisis is like widely reported and accepted by everyone except Netanyahu. Everyone else, Netanyahu is the only one left saying that nobody's starving in Gaza. Even Trump admitted there was serious starvation in Gaza. I say he's the only one. I mean, I guess like, maybe some people in his war cabinet, but like nobody else is covering for this. And then at the same time, while support for this has collapsed, it almost like parallels the Epstein thing a little bit, but while support for this has collapsed, there was just a great piece Dave DeCamp wrote on antiwar.com today. If you go to antiwar.com today, it's right up at the top one or two articles on there. But now, while the support has collapsed, Benjamin Netanyahu is preparing plans to annex Gaza. Like, they are committed to doing this, that they're going to take Gaza, make it part of Israel, and kick all the Palestinians out. And I don't know, I'm like, even it's almost like all the signs point to, yeah, they're actually getting ready to do that. And still on some part of me, I'm kind of like, dude, there's no way they're actually going to be that brazen to just do this when global opinion's already turned so far against them. So I don't know, but it seems like they're going through with this. And I really wonder what the reaction to all of that's going to be at a point where it's become so transparently obvious that this whole thing is so evil, and that the Israelis are lying through their teeth, and that they're not waging a war against Hamas or a war to get their hostages back, that they're waging a war against the people of Gaza to annex and ethnically cleanse the strip. What does the reaction of that actually look like? You know, you called pretty early on, Rob, in this war that like Israel's not going to be able to get away with this. You know, I'm almost like thinking in the same way, like Israel's like in terms of PR, not in terms of actual policy, but like they're just not. And that's kind of what I'm thinking with this too. Like this is just, oh my God. If you think it's bad now, man, the level of hatred for Israel if they do this is going to be off the charts. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Moinkbox. I love this company. What they do is great and simple, and it's a much needed service. If you're anything like me, you don't really like the meat that you get at the supermarket. And if you're anything like me, you don't really trust it. I feel much more comfortable getting meat from local family farms, and that's what Moinkbox delivers right to your doorstep. Their business is simple. Moink meat comes from animals raised outdoors and family farms. Their farmers are given an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices you can actually afford. Born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States of America. I can tell you guys, their meat is absolutely delicious. If you don't believe me, check it out for yourself, and you can support American family farms at the same time. Join the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/POTP right now, and you'll get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, but only for a limited time at moinkbox.com/POTP. That's moinkbox.com/POTP. All right, let's get back into the show.
Yeah, I think the wheel has turned in that the internet's undefeated, and sometimes they just get their hooks into a storyline. You just saw it with the Coldplay concert. That just kind of captured everyone's imagination, and everyone's on top of it. The Epstein story right now, in whatever way they kind of blundered with the binders and claiming that they had great stuff for you and then said, nope, nothing to see here. Everyone's all on board with it. Everyone wants an answer. And that's why your mainstream, even Republican senators are going, yeah, we got to get the information out. I heard from the old Kennedy guy. I heard from Josh Hawley. It's just across the board. They're kind of saying the administration's got to figure this one out, and we're going to need some transparency. And I saw a big shift in the reporting this past week where it's across the board, images from Gaza and reports of the hunger crisis that's going on there. And, there haven't even really been mainstream, like that many pictures, because I think it's not that easy to report out of Gaza, but some of like the horrifying images that you're seeing now of people, fighting each other essentially for food. And by fighting, I don't mean like they're fist fighting. I mean, it's just kind of like mob pushing to the front, trying to get some food. But once kind of like the internet takes notice of something to the point that the mainstream media companies have to report on it, it becomes, nearly impossible to dodge. I mean, just think about the way the mainstream media was able to sell COVID for 2 years and how much of the population bought into that. And now this is a true story, and you're seeing actual information about it. So I do think the wheel is turning. I think you're going to see more pressure applied to Israel to actually make the situation better for the people that are living there. And I think they're going to have a hard time selling it as the moral just war of just going after Hamas that are savages and can't live next to us.
Yeah, no, all great points. And I think that, you can't even during COVID, like you talked about the 2 years where they were selling that, even that, I mean, it required like a tremendous amount of tech censorship. And, the fact was that, and we were there. I mean, we were in this world. It was like, even for the people who maybe didn't get completely banned and kicked off, it was like they were very effective at creating an environment where you knew you were really risking something by talking about this stuff. Like, and that I mean, I guess we have to run the counterfactual, but certainly the fact that they were doing that censorship indicates that they believed it was very important to do. And I would agree with them on that. We can't run the counterfactual, but it is interesting. Like, could they have gotten away with as much as they got away with if the internet wasn't censored like that and people really were free to speak out against them? And like, that seems to be the environment that Israel, like that is a huge part of what kind of just got the toothpaste out of the tube on this whole thing. Was like, it's just the controls weren't working anymore. And so there were just people out there just exposing this shit constantly. And then that became, there was such interest in that type of content that it did just become, I don't think Piers Morgan builds his gigantic show the way he has if he wasn't just constantly having debates about this topic. Like, that's the thing that people want to talk about. And in that environment where you really have this uncontrolled media, it's almost impossible, I think, to sell a policy like this. I mean, it's like, think about what the policy itself actually is. I mean, it's essentially like, up to reporting today, like I was just pointing to, the plan here is what? Just to destroy the Gaza Strip with 2+ million people inside it while you're doing it, to level 80% of the buildings, bomb the rubble, kill people by the tens of thousands, maybe end up in the hundreds of thousands when this is all said and done. Maybe we're already there. And then ethnically cleanse and annex the territory is like, that's a tough policy to sell, man. Like, there is no military on the other side of this. There's no war. There's no, like, how do you even sell this? They committed a terrorist attack, so we're allowed to be terrorists for 2 years. That's your sell. It's very, very tough when you got people who are out there opposing it freely. So yeah, it's been, if nothing else, it's been a real interesting experiment that's been run. And I don't mean to say that in a way that's disrespectful to like the real people whose lives have been destroyed over it, but running this like kind of experiment of, can the US government get away with facilitating the destruction of a people when they don't have control of the propaganda? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what happens when you run that experiment? And that's a very fascinating experiment to run. And it turns out that it does really make a big difference. It does really make it, like, there's a reason why regimes invest so much in propaganda, because that shit really does work. Okay, here we got a question from the chat. Dave, how do you feel about Joe Rogan refusing to have Bibi Netanyahu on his podcast? Well, I would say that we, the public, do not know what exactly happened there. It's that I don't know. Did you see, Rob, that Benjamin Netanyahu's son tweeted about how Joe Rogan refuses to have his dad on because he couldn't stand up to him, and he would stand up to all his anti-Semitic something. And my first thought on it was just like, as I've said many times over the last couple of years, it is baffling to me how bad the Israelis are at selling this thing. It's like, that's your angle? Like, even if you were trying to get Netanyahu, you're trying to get your father on Joe Rogan's, like, that's your thing, to just call him a Jew hater and say he's a coward for not having him on? Like, why would you be trying to just push the most influential guy in America away from you like that? Just seems really stupid. Now, look, let's say if it's true that, hey, look, I'd say do it. Bring me. I'll go debate Netanyahu on JRE. But I don't know. I don't, like, with all these things, I don't think there is a correct or incorrect answer. I could completely understand why someone wouldn't want to talk to Netanyahu. I think it would be interesting if he did have him on, and me being there or not, I think Joe would do just fine with him you know, by himself. Joe's really, really good at interviewing people, and he's really, really good at calling out bullshit. Which seems, he makes it seem like that's very easy, but that stuff isn't very easy. It's a real skill that he's phenomenal at. So I, you know, like I'd be like, hey, do it, you know, expose him. But I could also understand just not even wanting to talk to that guy. There's there's a level of evil to all this shit that I always understand people just not wanting to be too close to that. But I don't know. You got any thoughts, Rob?
I saw the headline and I did not dig into the story, but just my snapshot is that Rogan is absolutely incredible if he sniffs some bullshit and he wants to prod at it and not let you off the hook. And his willingness to sit in that discomfort and kind of own the discomfort and be like, you're not going to bully me out of having this inquiry. But I would say the flavor of the show is more that he likes to have people on that he wants to hear out and he thinks has a fascinating story that he wants to hear about, less than he seems to want to have people on specifically to debunk them. That's not really the show that he does. And I know originally he didn't want to have Donald Trump on for a period of time because he felt like it would be an endorsement, I believe, and he didn't want to just kind of give Trump free run to pitch his madness. And I think once Kamala was so bad and Donald Trump had been shot at, and when there were all those other stories, it became more interesting for him to have Trump on and hear him out. And it was a little bit more of an endorsement to allow him to come onto the show and, you know, be Trump and be charming and have the 2 hours. So I can understand why, especially as he's already done the Douglas Murray thing, and I don't think Netanyahu would agree for you to be there. I don't think
No,
that's
not happening.
For.
I was just joking. That's not happening.
I could just understand that it's not really the flavor of Rogan's show to be like, hey, I'm going to have this person on just so I can give them a hard time. And I don't, that's not really what he does. So it kind of makes sense to me that he wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, I think that it does look, again, not commenting on what actually happened, because that's really not, like, Joe hasn't made anything public about any of this, I don't think. But there is something like very interesting. You know, look, so what we have in the public is that Benjamin Netanyahu's son said Joe Rogan refuses to have him on. And I guess what you could reasonably take away from that is that, like, they wanted to go on Joe Rogan and they're upset about it, you know, like, unless he's just making the whole thing up, but like, there's just something really interesting about that. They kind of know, like, it's such an admission in a way that it's like, shit, we're losing American support. We got to get control of this narrative back. We don't have our propaganda apparatus. And where do we have to go? We have to go to Austin, Texas to sit down with Joe Rogan, because that's like the thing that's the biggest thing you can do to move the needle or whatever.
Tucker said he would have him on if you really want to do, mainstream alternative media. Go on Tucker.
He's not. I don't think he's going to do that. Because Tucker will have someone on just to expose them, and Tucker has in the same way that, you know, like for Rogan, I think it was like COVID and the and you know, the insanity of the COVID regime and the fraudulent nature of the vaccine and all this stuff, that Joe really took an interest in that and really read up on it and really knew his shit. And also, he was personally attacked by the corporate media in a really vicious way. And so that was like a thing that he was really on. And in that same set, like, if you had tried, you know, when Dr. Gupta went on his show, Joe Rogan fucking humiliated that guy.
But even with Dr. Gupta, maybe I don't remember this correctly. I don't remember Gupta going after him until Gupta said, why don't you just go ahead and get a vaccine? And he goes, well, I already did. I mean, he's like, I already had COVID. Why would I get it? And then that kind of really, like, although he did call him out for no,
he wasn't a dick to him, but he did hold his feet to the fire and call out his network, and he really embarrassed
over the ivermectin thing.
Yes. the horse dewormer nonsense. But so, the thing is, I think Tucker would be like that with Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, I think Tucker's already said stuff about how, he's directly called the Israeli government to tell them to stop attacking him. He was threatened, kind of by the former Israeli prime minister. He's like, I think it's become personal to him, and he knows his stuff. And I think that would go very, very bad for Bibi if he were to go on Tucker's show. So I don't think we'll be seeing that, but man, that would be really great. I would love to see that one. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Crowd Health, longtime sponsor of this podcast. I love this company. With Crowd Health, you can finally rid yourself of the bureaucracy of the healthcare system and take agency over your own health. Crowd Health just introduced the Black Swan membership. It's the healthcare alternative for people who want autonomy over their care, their costs, and their lifestyle. They just need a little help with the Black Swan events that happen in life. Well, now for just $95 a month, you get access to a team of health bill negotiators, low-cost prescriptions, lab testing tools, and a database of low-cost, high-quality doctors vetted by Crowd Health. You stay in control without insurance and their networks dictating your care. And what if something major happens? You pay the first $15K, and then the Crowd steps in to help fund the rest. It feels like the options that we used to have before Obamacare messed everything up. And if you use the promo code POTP, it's only $80 for the first 3 months. Visit joincrowdhealth.com and use the promo code POTP to get that deal, $80 for the first 3 months. Crowd Health is not insurance. Opt out. Take your power back. This is how we win. Joincrowdhealth.com, promo code POTP. All right, let's get back into the show. But it's an interesting question, and it's an interesting dynamic. Like what do you do about this? Like, world leaders wanting to come on to big podcasts now, it's there, there's a debate about it. Like, I always kind of am on the side. My de facto, like my starting point is like, yeah, the more the better. Just like, yeah, do the shows. Maybe one's a little bit friendlier, maybe one's a little more confrontational, but whatever. Get more speech, more content, more on the record statements from these guys. That being said, I can certainly understand why some people wouldn't want to do it. And there's nuance to all of these things. Like, I always tend to be on the side of interviewing, of platforming, to borrow a term I don't particularly like, but I'm always on the side of like having the leaders of enemy countries on. Like, if there's a conflict or there's about to be a war or we're building up toward, some type of confrontation, I think it's always better to like hear from the other side. Like, because you always want more perspective, more information, because almost all wars are sold on lies, and so like your own government, you're getting propaganda from your own government. Now you're going to get propaganda from their government, but at least you see where the other propaganda lines up, and maybe that could lead to an off-ramp where it doesn't have to be a war. There is something kind of different about interviewing a foreign leader of a supposed ally who is trying to bring us into their wars. That is a little bit of a different dynamic. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. I certainly understand why, people wouldn't want to talk to Netanyahu. And then I also do think, and again, this is not anything I've talked to Joe about, but I do think that there are incentives to just not do it. Like, you're sticking your hand in a hornet's nest, and you're gonna piss off a lot of people no matter what. Like, no matter what, if you do it, you're gonna piss off people who think you weren't hard enough. You're gonna piss off people who think you were too hard. It is kind of, there's a lot of costs, I think, to doing it. And from what I saw, which I guess we kind of, or I kind of stood up for him a little bit on that podcast, but evidently the Nelk boys were taking like all types of flack from their own audience over it. Like their own audience was furious at him, and they had to like basically do an apology video. Like he said, I'm not apologizing, but then did an apology video essentially about it. Did you see that? What I'm talking?
Well, I did see an interview in a car when he said that they were given questions to ask and they went off script, but it seemed like, they walked into an intimidating room. Everything was already set up. You got all sorts of people standing around in suits. And I guess the expectation was for an even more just give me interview than what took place.
I've heard people say that like evidently this is a thing that's done a lot when you interview like heads of state or high ranking political figures, that they'll come and their people will give you like a sheet with bullet points on it that'll be like, these are all the administration's accomplishments, let's talk about all of these things or whatever. And I saw Sager and Jetty said that he interviewed Trump a few times and he said he'd get things like that. And he goes, if you're a professional, you just go, oh, thank you very much. And then you put that to the side and then you do whatever you were going to do anyway. But it sounded at least like the way they were saying it was they kind of said like, we did break from the script, but you're like, oh, but that's kind of an admission that you're saying like in order to break from it, you must have been on it at one point. And so I do think, and just from the way they were describing it, they were talking about how intimidating the situation was and how there's all these guys in suits and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, dude, they handed you a script and you started reading from that script. That I will say, and I was defending those guys, that's bad. You really can't do that. There's something about that is almost like, I don't mean this in like the strict legal sense, but in some ways you're like committing fraud when you do that. You know what I mean? Like I do think that there's an implicit contract in some way. Again, I'm not saying this in like a legal sense, but I just feel like in terms of what my like ethical obligation is to my audience, I think when I'm talking to you right now, there is an implicit like statement that, oh, someone else did not give me a script to read. You're hearing from me. These are my real thoughts. And that you really don't want to be in the situation where you're interviewing a foreign leader and they gave you a script that you're reading from. Like you're not even asking the questions you want to ask. You're asking the questions they would like you to ask so they can set them up. And it's like and it does make you wonder like, oh man, how much of what you said in that thing was just the script? Like did Netanyahu, was the Burger King thing in there or was that you guys, So anyway.
So, I'll also just say you can't listen in life. You can't do everything. And like if you were to look at, let's say Fauci during COVID, let's say I was just your average layman and I knew I'm not that comfortable getting the vaccine. I think this guy's lying to me. And then you get the offer to have Fauci on your podcast. If you want to do that podcast, well, you now got to do an extreme amount of homework to actually catch him in a lie. It's different than like, let's say you were pro green energy and you liked the Biden administration's plan for windmills and you get like the energy czar on. You don't really have to prepare for that. You're interested in, they're interested in green energy. I can hear this lady out on what they're trying to do. Whereas if you think it's a scam, you can't just go, well, I don't think that's true. You're going to have to actually like research like how much wattage is needed, how much it's caught. Like you need to know a lot of information to debunk something and conduct an interview. And so if you're Joe Rogan and you're having Netanyahu on amidst all the programming that you're doing and everything that you're doing, unless you're allowed to have someone like you on or someone else who can kind of fact check live, which is not the show he typically does. That's a very difficult interview to do because you're not actually interested in what the guy's doing as much as you want to see if you can catch him or get him to actually explain. You know what I mean? And so it's a different show. That's not really what he does. So I kind of, while I agree with you, it's nice if you can get these people on the record, if you know that you don't really have the skill set or you don't want to take the time to do the prep so that you can actually catch someone that you think is lying and doing something terrible. I do think it makes sense to pass on that.
All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Monetary Metals, an amazing company that I've been telling you about for quite a while now. If you own gold, you've probably been happy to see the prices have been hitting an all-time high in the last year, but your gold can do more than just sit there and wait for the price to go up. It can generate passive income for you with Monetary Metals. Now you can earn up to 5% interest on your gold and silver paid in more ounces of metal, and accredited investors can even achieve double-digit returns in their bond offerings. All interest payments are made in ounces of gold and silver stored in your account free of charge. If this is something that you want to do, if you don't want your precious metals gathering dust at home, costing you annual storage fees, it's time to check out Monetary Metals. Go visit their website, monetary-metals.com. That's monetary-metals.com. All right, let's get back into the show. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. And let's see if let me check the chat, see if there's any other questions in there. Joking around about the Nelk boys asking him about Burger King. There was something about that really did sound like what's it called? That did sound like he was a robot. Okay. Question,
I will
Dave.
say when I was a kid and I went to Israel, like maybe, I don't know, I must have been like 9 or 10 years old. You know, my family had all these religious excursions planned, seeing all the sights and scenes, and spending a whole life eating kosher. All I wanted to do was go to Burger King and McDonald's. And
Dude, that is hilarious.
yeah, and I even remember I came home with like these placemats from Burgers and like Burger King, McDonald's. And my grandfather was a very smart, well-read guy, and he's like, "I can't believe you brought your kids to the other side of the world just so he could get excited about McDonald's." But with all that said, I remember not liking McDonald's.
Really funny being and liking Burger King. Really,
I liked Burger King. Absolutely. When I was a kid, I did not eat fast food. I went all the way to Israel, and I had McDonald's one night and Burger King 4 nights because I think my parents tried going to other places, and I was just like, no, I'm eating another burger from Burger King.
It's hilarious not just to be like halfway around the world, but also like the birthplace of the 3 major religions. Like, it's just a hilarious place to be like.
And I just want to eat kosher. By the way, Burger King.
I'm not trashing Burger King. I'm not trashing Burger King. Burger King's solid. I like McDonald's more, but Burger King is solid. I can't really eat any of it anymore, but I did always. But even if I did, like if I went to Burger King right now, I would enjoy it. Like by the time I'm back in my car, I wouldn't, but I would go and enjoy some Burger King right now. It'd be a horrible rest of the day, but that part would be fun. Okay, so Jay asked, what are your thoughts on Lex Friedman cutting out 1 hour of the Scott Horton podcast? That actually reminds me, I'm supposed to, Lex addressed it on Twitter yesterday, and I had posted a thing that I thought he had a good response, and I like
what was
Lex.
His response?
And, it was something about how basically they went 5 hours. He edited one of the hours out because like he said he thought the tone of the debate or something like that was, I forget his exact word, but then he said me and Scott are recording a solo episode later this week and diving deep into all his stuff. So I kind of felt like Lex is I like Lex. He's always been cool to me. And I think that's great that he's having Scott back on. So I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, that's cool. I certainly, I understand why it bothered Scott. And he said particularly because there was one point where Scott said, he said, which I've had this experience too. But he, said a bunch of stuff, none of it about the Jews, but a bunch of stuff about Israel and the neoconservatives or whatever. And then the guy just goes, oh yeah, more about the Jews. And he said that, I guess the way he edited it, like he edited out what Scott said and then edited out Scott's response to that. And he's like, dude, you left the part where the guy calls me an anti-Semite and cut out my response to it. And so, I think that, look, I think Lex is a good dude. I'm glad he's going to have Scott back on. I'm looking forward to watching that show. I think it'll be a great one, and a great audience for Scott to get in front of. I don't want, I want to facilitate that being a really good show. So I'm not trying to like get in a thing with Lex and whatever. Like I said, I like him. I do think, generally speaking, that debates should not be edited at all.
Sounds like real bullshit to me.
Yeah, if you're like it's I've never, I don't think ever had one edited. But I would certainly be upset if I went and did a debate and they cut part of it out. You'd be like, yo, no. You don't cut that part out. Like that happened. That was part of it. And again, it's like we're doing shows on the internet. There's just no reason not to. There's no reason to not just put the full thing out there. And like if it got tense or it devolved or you think it wasn't productive, it's like, okay, but I think people should still see that, and that's what happened. I just think in general, that should be like the standard practice in our industry, is that like you come here, for me, it goes without saying, I don't think I've ever expressed this thought to anyone. I mean, like maybe if I was like if like the New York Times or the Washington Post or someone like that was like asked me to come sit down for a conversation or something like that, I think I would be like, okay, but I want to record it too and put the whole thing unedited out. But I've never thought to have to ask that. It's not like I ever thought to like say that to Patrick Bet David or something like that. But certainly I would say my expectations say like, if I'm going, Patrick Bet David is hosting a debate versus me versus someone else, and I'm going there, it is my just understanding, without it ever being said, that like this will air in its entirety. Like that would be, and I would think the onus would be on you beforehand to be like, hey, I'm gonna edit this or something like that. So I do think that's just not the way to do it. You shouldn't edit debates, and also it doesn't need to be. Like
unless you're censoring and trying to cheat for somebody, or you're so committed to a narrative that you don't like something that was said because you think it really destroys the point that you want to get across, which none of that's honest.
Well, what bothered me, which I said this publicly, what had bothered me, so I didn't know that until later. I guess this was like I watched the debate and didn't notice that there was a cut in it. I think, Scott had told me, I think, that they did 5 hours, but I never put it together and went, oh, there's only 4 hours here. I just saw it and was like, oh, he was wrong. They thought they did 5, but they only did 4. But what did bother me was I did think Lex was being a bit unfair of a moderator, and particularly the part which I had mentioned before, where Scott was making the point that the Adelsons have given Trump hundreds of millions of dollars between between the 3 presidential campaigns, and that at one point Lex like cut him off and goes, no, we're not going to do that. Like that's as if it was like a personal attack or something like that. And you're like, dude, the moderator can't do that. That's like moderating malpractice. Like you can't that's a totally legitimate topic that he's allowed to, like, how could you tell me I'm not allowed? We're going to sit here and debate, environmental policy, and I'm not allowed to point out that you took hundreds of millions of dollars from an energy special interest or something like that. Like what? That's crazy. And the fact is that again, like as always, which I don't think I've ever, man, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think I've ever, in all the podcasts I've done, in all the debates I've done about the topic of, say, Israel or American foreign policy for that matter, I don't think I've ever once cited an Arab source. Like, I don't think I've ever once been like, no, as this Palestinian historian points out, and by the way, that's my own ignorance, and I'm sure there are great Palestinian historians. I know like of 1 or 2, but I've just never, like, those just are never my sources. I'm never like, oh, but this is what the Egyptians said, or this is what my sources are always what the US government people say and what the Israeli government people like. It's always their own words. Like, you don't have to look at anything else. And I think that in a lot of ways, because that's the more powerful and damning evidence. But again, like Sheldon Adelson said in a speech, I believe it was in Tel Aviv, but he said, have you ever seen this speech, Rob, where he said that his greatest regret in life was that he served the U.S. Army and not the IDF? Like, his body was, when he died, I'm pretty sure, but I know that part's definitely true. Pretty sure his body was flown to Israel after he died. And so, look, that's fine. You're allowed to have whatever regrets you want to. You could say you wished you had served in the IDF, but like, when you're on record saying that, like going, my loyalty is to this government over my government, fine. But I do think then when you're given hundreds of millions of dollars to political candidates and campaigns, that should be viewed as what it is, which is essentially a foreign spy donating to, right? Like, if you're on record in your own words saying that, then okay, your allegiance is with them, and that's fine. But then that kind of, I feel like, should come with stuff, the restrictions or whatever. Like, I think it is very reasonable, absurdly reasonable, to insist that everybody who serves in government or who contributes vast sums of money to government, that their priority ought to be their country. And that if your priority is a different country, then you should not be in those roles. I don't think that's unreasonable. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Kalshi. I've been seeing them more and more on social media. If you're like me, you've probably seen them all over the place on social media. I personally have downloaded the app and have been checking it out. Kalshi is America's first fully regulated prediction market, CFTC approved in all 50 states. You can bet on just about anything, cash in, or just see what the world's thinking without the mainstream filter. It's always interesting to watch trends when there's money on the line, and what people are betting on, whether interest rates are going to go up or down, or how the midterm elections are going to go. All very interesting stuff. Go sign up at kalshi.com/Dave. You can sign up there and start trading right away and see where the markets are. That's Kalshi, where your gut meets real money. All right, let's get back into the show. Okay, Dave, thoughts on Candace Owens' Macron lawsuit? It's crazy Macron was delaying Ukraine peace negotiations over it. Well,
do like to keep their man wives a secret.
It does seem to be a trend. Now, careful, Rob. They do like to sue. So that was satire.
I didn't say Macron. I just said, typically speaking, if you're an elite with a man wife, you like to keep it a secret.
Yes, that is true. This is a general statement. There are, of course, exceptions. There are elites who are very proud of their man wives.
You don't even know too many elites with man wives, which is just proof of the fact that they're good at keeping it a secret. That's why you don't hear about it that often.
Look, I will first disclaim, I don't know anything about this. Like, I literally know that Candace has did like a 5-hour presentation on it. I haven't watched it, but I know she did that. And I know that they're suing her. And I know that there's a video of that beautiful woman like mushing Macron in the face on the plane. That's about what I know. There's a quality that Candace Owens has that I just find so endearing, which is her courage. Like, it is crazy how much I just saw her already just doubling down after, like, as soon as they're like, oh, they're suing me. She's like, this dude's suing me for calling him a dude. I mean, she's just like, and there is something about Candace, like, she's just fearless like that. That just is not, it's like, she's got this quality about her where it's almost like, it's like talking shit to Jordan or something like that. You know, like you ever hear those stories about people like on, you know, the opposing team, and then like the rookie starts talking shit to Michael Jordan, and then everyone else on the team is like, no, what are you doing? Don't, you know, you can't do that. You can't do that. Now he's going to put 50 on us. Like there's just, it's like, if you want Candace to shut up, you really better not tell her to shut up. You better not be like, well, I'm going to call you vicious names. Like all the things that are tactics to shut someone down, she is not like moved by that. And
it was kind of like the Dave Portnoy thing, where I remember like 2 years ago, Macron responded in the New York Post saying like, my wife is a female and please stop bringing this up. And I'm like, you're just letting people know that this bothers you. Like you should not even be addressing this. Just addressing this without like lifting up her skirt and being like, look, nothing here. You don't, you're not coming forward with definitive proof. You're actually just kind of bitching yourself out as you acknowledge that your wife doesn't look like a lady and you are bothered by the fact that the internet has taken notice of that. Yeah. Good luck with less reporting on that or less interest in the story now that you've let everyone know that you acknowledge that your wife doesn't necessarily look like a lady and that you're married to an older lady, even though you're a handsome, powerful man.
Yeah.
That's a little bit odd. And you're bothered by us pointing it out. All right, we're done. Fair is fair, politician man.
Yeah, this is it's really, really it's really, really hilarious and just really, really poorly handled.
It's a tough defamation suit. Like if I were to say, hey, your restaurant's serving rats, and then no one went into the restaurant, and then it was discovered that I'd fabricated the story, and now you no longer have a restaurant because everyone thought you were serving rats in there. You got clear financial damages. In a world of the progressives, where we're supposed to cherish these relationships, and we're supposed to cherish that you can be gay, what is the financial loss? Or what is the problem of being why do you have a in other words, is Macron saying he has a problem with people that would be married to a man wife?
Yeah. Well, this is there. It's a tough position to be in, being like the part of the progressive elite, and now arguing that
it's
people,
offensive.
Yes, people believing that you're married to a trans person is inherently damaging to you. Now, I get maybe you can get there somehow and you could, you know, make that, but it is a pretty awkward position to be in, to be saying that. Like the other thing is just the very nature of having to go to court to prove that you are a woman. You kind of already lose that game. Like that's not a win. You know, like that's just the, and then I guess the other, listen, I have no idea what the truth of it is. I'm just probably I'm Joe Sixpack on this issue. It sounds like a pretty ridiculous claim. Like, come on, there's no way that's actually true.
Natalie, pull up some pictures.
Well, the fact no, please don't, Natalie. But the fact that Candace like is gonna get to go to court and present her case for why she believes this is kind of amazing. I don't know.
That some people in France already lost a defamation suit against this.
I think that's I thought they won.
That's what I meant, that the Macron family lost.
The Macron family lost the defamation suit. Yes, I believe that's right. And so, you know, like, I don't know. Again, also, I think that one was in Europe, whereas this one would be under the U.S. justice legal system. So that I don't know, like, if the standards are different over there or what. But
he's in court just like, she's an old hag. She spent too much time in the sun. Leave it alone.
Yeah, he's got to go. He goes, my first witness, I'd like to call my wife. She will be complaining for the next 45 minutes. What do you think? I think it'll be pretty obvious by the end of that. What's what? Yeah, anyway, interested to see how this goes. Okay, Dave and Rob, can you get into the claim that the UN is responsible for the blockade in Gaza? If you haven't already, I joined late. Yeah, I don't know what type of propaganda that is. I'd have to like hear the argument, if you can call it that, laid out, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, the UN has been pretty consistently for, 50 years, 40 years at least, you know, condemning what Israel does, trying to push toward a two-state solution, opposing the apartheid, opposing the blockade, and they're bailed out by the U.S. And that's pretty undeniably the case. I mean, don't get me wrong, the U.S. will also, admit when Hamas is committing war crimes or things like that. But no, I mean, it's you really just don't have to work that hard to figure out who's responsible for the Israeli blockade around Gaza. It's like, it's the Israeli military that's enforcing it. It's not the UN. So I think that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Any thoughts on any of that, Rob?
I hadn't seen that storyline, but it doesn't check out to me.
Yes. Dave, when are you coming to PorkFest? That's a good question. I don't know about that. I do always had a great time when I was out there, though. I will maybe not PorkFest, but I will definitely try to get up to New Hampshire sometime soon. Rob always goes up there.
Yeah, I got a New Hampshire gig in September, I believe. September, October, playing some dude's mansion. We're going to set up the basement and do it. So come on out for that. And then at some point I'll be back at the Shell.
There you go. All right, Dave, how about fat fuck Randy Fine saying we should nuke Gaza like Japan? Yeah, that guy's a fucking monster. I mean, geez, Lindsey Graham just said the same thing the other day too. It said something Israel should do to Gaza what we did to Germany and Japan. It's yeah. Oh, yeah. We have that here. Yeah, we could play that and then we'll wrap up. Yeah, that's right. We got the video of Lindsey Graham saying that. Good call, Natalie. Yeah, here was Lindsey Graham echoing Randy Fine's statements.
President Trump said he told Prime Minister Netanyahu to, quote, finish the job this week. I know that you are in touch with President Trump. You're in touch with Israeli officials. What are you anticipating is going to happen next? What does finish the job mean, Senator?
Well, I talked to Cindy McCain last night. Here's some good news for the people in Gaza. Humanitarian quarters are now going to be open. Israel is going to work with the UN, the World Food Program, to get some food into these people who need it. But I think what the topic we're talking about today is a change in strategy. I think President Trump has come to believe, and I certainly have come to believe, there's no way you're going to negotiate an end to this war with Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization who is chartered to destroy the state of Israel. They're religious Nazis. They hold Israeli hostages. I think Israel's come to conclude that they can't achieve a goal of ending the war with Hamas that would be satisfactory to the safety of Israel. And if they're going to do in Gaza what we did in Tokyo and Berlin, take the place by force, then start over again, presenting a better future for the Palestinians, hopefully having the Arabs take over the West Bank and Gaza. But I think going forward, Christian, you're going to see a change in tactics, a full military effort by Israel to take Gaza down like we did in Tokyo and Berlin.
Senator.
Yeah, there you go. There's now no more Mr. Nice Guy. Now they're going to go out. This is what I was talking about earlier, saying as support for this is evaporating, they're going even bigger and bigger. It's like, yeah, I don't know what can you even say? Like, this is now you realize Hamas is a terrorist organization, so you can't negotiate with them. Some acknowledgement that, the people do need food, and then we should take them down like Tokyo and Japan. I mean, what is the reference here? Firebombing, nuclear weapons? Like, I don't know, but there seems to be no thought. You've got a completely destroyed Gaza, and they're talking about ramping it up. It really is just horrific. Any thoughts, Rob?
Well, leave it to Lindsey Graham to be pitching more war, but I guess at least he's being sophisticated enough here to say it's going to be better for the residents of the area. Which I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, something about dropping bombs on people doesn't usually make them better off. But okay, we will wrap up on that one. Thank you guys very much. Catch you tomorrow, 1 p.m. with a brand new episode. Peace.